Google Cloud Network is Google's global software-defined network, which spans across different countries and regions around the world, as you can see here in this map. It leverages Google's high-speed connectivity through fiber optics between those different regions. And it's something that you can leverage if you use Google Cloud's services, because that's exactly where the network infrastructure is built on top of. It's all those data centers spread out across the globe. To understand how Google's cloud network offering works, which is the virtual private cloud or VPC, whenever you create a GCP project, you're going to have by default a global network, which is the default network, and that will come with different subnetworks, one for each region that Google Cloud operates in. And by default also you have connectivity between instances in the same network, even if they are in different regions. As you can see in network number 1 here, instances A and B are on different regions and continents even, but they can still connect and communicate with each other. Whereas instances C and D, which are on different networks, they cannot by default communicate with each other unless they have public IP addresses, and those are whitelisted in the firewall. So as far as some networks go, they can cross different zones. So within a region there are different zones, which often maps to a single data center, but it could be several data centers within a zone, but they're basically geographically distant areas. And as you can see here, VMs can be on the same subnet, but in different zones. They can still communicate with each other by default, and a single firewall rule can apply to both VMs here in this case. As far as routing goes, there is a global virtual router that you get in every network, and every instance is virtually connected to it. So every time traffic is routed outside of an instance, it hits this global router that's gonna decide how traffic is supposed to be forwarded to any of the possible destinations that there can be. So this is how Google implements its cloud networking, and it's based on its software-defined networking. So here I have created a project in GCP, and every project comes with a default network. So all I have to do now is go here to VPC network in the menu, and then I can see that a network is already being created and associated to this project. It's called the default network, and it comes with a subnet or a subnetwork in each and every region where Google operates. So you can see all the regions here, and they have different address blocks associated to them. They're all /20 subnetwork ranges, and each one of them with their own gateway address. We can also navigate here to routes and see that we have a default route created already for each of the networks for routing traffic to each one of the subnetworks. And we also have a default route to the internet right here, which basically states that every address that do not match any of the other specified address should go to the internet gateway. If we browse firewall rules, we can see that there are a couple of default firewall rules that have been created. This is allowing ICMP traffic, so ping and RDP and SSH are all allowed inside the network, as well as default allow of everything basically inside the network itself. All the others allowed for any other sources. So perhaps not the best in terms of security, but nothing prevents me from selecting all of those firewall rules and deleting them. And as the default behavior of the firewall, there's an implied deny all ingress, which means that if I don't have any specified rule in here, basically I am denying all inbound traffic to my networks. But I'm going to go ahead and actually delete this VPC network here so that I can create another network that's going to be a custom network. Now the network has been deleted, and I'm going to create a new one. So this is going to be a custom network. And I'm going to leave custom selected here. The other option is the automatic network, which creates all the subnets for me and the default firewall rules and routes as well. So I'm going to create my subnets. In the custom mode network, I'm not going to have any subnet by default, so I have to create them myself. So I'm going to call my first subnet, subnet 1 US, and I'm going to say this is in US East 1, and I'm going to create an address range. And then I'm going to add another one that I'm going to call subnet to Europe. And I'm going to create this one in Europe West 1 region, and I'm going to give it an address of 10.0.20/24. For the dynamic routing mode, I'm going to leave as regional. So I'm going to go ahead and create that. So now my network has been created, and I have my two subnets that I created, one in each different region. And I'm going to go and browse the routes here. And as you can see, I have a default route, local route for the subnetwork. .10, which was my US subnetwork, so I have traffic inside that subnetwork routable, and then I have the default route for the other subnetwork, and then I have the default route to the internet. I don't have any firewall rule. I'm going to create a firewall rule here to allow access allowing internal traffic, and I'm going to apply that to my network. I'm going to say all ingress traffic inside the network. So I'm going to allow all TCP and UDP ports, and I'm going to go ahead and create that. By default, all egress traffic is allowed, so I don't need to create an explicit one for that. Now I'm going to go ahead and create two virtual machines, one on each virtual network, to demonstrate the traffic and connectivity between them. So I'm going to go ahead to compute engine VM instances. I'm going to create my first instance in US, and I'm going to specify the region as US East 1. I'm going to create a micro VM, and down here I'll select management and network, and in the networking tab I can specify that this is to be created in my VPC demo network and in the subnet US subnetwork. So that's already selected. I'm going to go ahead and create it. And while that one is being created, I'm going to go ahead and create the European instance. So I'm going to call that instance EU. I'm going to say the region is Europe West 1. Make it micro, and I'm just going to double check here in the networking tab that I have this instance being deployed to the set network in the European region. So I'm going to go ahead and create that as well. Now the first instance has already been created, so I'm going to open an SSH tab. So as you can see, I'm not actually able to connect to this VM because I don't have a firewall rule that allows SSH access from outside of the network. So I'm going to go back to my VPC network firewall rules, and I'm going to create a rule here that allows TCP 22 traffic, and apply that to my network. Its ingress, I want to allow it, the target is all instances in the network, and I'm going to say that it's any source. I could have specified my specific public IP address of my machine, but I'm just gonna leave it like that. And I'm gonna say it's TCP port 22, create. Now that I have my firewall rule in place, I can go back to my console, and as you can see, I'm now connected to my instance. So this is my US instance, which has IP 10.0.10.2, and I'm gonna go ahead and try to ping my other instance, which should have the IP of 10.0.20.2. As you can see, I'm not allowed to do that because in my firewall rule, I actually allowed TCP and UDP traffic, but not ICMP traffic. So let's modify that one to make sure that I can also ping between the different VMs. So I'm gonna specify here ICMP safe. And as you can see, ping started to go through. So that was custom networks.